Hey everybody, this is Chad with the Refuge Foundation in Roaring Fork Ranch, and today we'll be making a Tuscan Italian chili and a New England Clam Chowder. So as we start right here, I'm just cutting vegetables for the chili, onions, peppers, celery, and some carrot. And we'll go just along and talk about what we're doing here. A number of guests have asked for recipes and things like that, and I started thinking about it and realized that it would be just best if I put it on my YouTube channel. You can see kind of how I do stuff. This is a larger quantity, so it's a bigger version than what you would normally probably cook at home, although it's nice to have this and be able to freeze it and use it for later. So we'll move on with this, and then we'll talk some more. Right here I'm cutting the ends off the celery. It comes out of the package, they're a little bit dry, and so I take the ends off and then chop the rest of it. You want your vegetables to be big enough that there's a little bit of substance behind them in the soup. You don't want to cut them too thin so that they dissolve in the soup. Grayson working really hard back there behind me, cleaning up after me. It's nice to have a team of people that care deeply about cleanliness, and just they take their jobs pretty seriously around here, serving the people that come to visit us for refuge, for respite, and to become a little bit better off when they go home, to be able to serve their people better. I don't peel my carrots. I'm one of those old school people that likes the vitamins in the So when you're chopping onions, it's easiest to take both ends off, cut them in half. It makes it a little bit easier to get the skin off. Peel your skin, get down to good onion without the paper on there. I turn them on the side, and I'll show you here in a second. Put the root end away from you. I'm going to end up cutting celery here. Didn't realize I was going to do that. So this is for the clam chowder. Pretty good sized amount of celery and a whole onion for this pot of clam chowder. Same deal, just take the celery out of the package, cut the dry ends off so that you don't have those in your soup. They're kind of just, they're leathery when you eat them. Get all the big chunks taken care of so you don't have a monster piece of celery in there. And then take your onions, take the root end away. So the point of the knife is pointing toward the root end. Cut them vertically, and then you can kick them off like I'm doing here. And it's a finer dice, and makes cutting an onion pretty quick. Holly's happy face, come in here to say hello. And Nick wants to know what I'm making. So here at the pot, this is the Italian chili. I've already got the vegetables in. Coat the bottom of the pan with olive oil, probably about a half a cup, and then put all of the vegetables that I just cut in there. The garlic isn't in there yet, so I'll show adding that here in a little bit. Switch pots because I wanted that pot for my clam chowder, so I put that in the tall pot. Bigger volume of the Italian chili. So stick of butter in there for the clam chowder. Gotta light the burner here. Bring our bowl of vegetables in there. Actually, that right there was bacon, about a half a pound of bacon, rough chopped, along with that stick of butter, and then I brown that off until it's just starting to get crispy on the bacon. I'm gonna keep that bacon stirred up. The butter can burn on the bottom. It's gonna brown, and it's fine for it to brown the milk solids, but you want to keep an eye on it because it can have a tendency to burn those milk solids, and it's not terribly appetizing. There's Nick again saying, "Hey, I like this. This is gonna be good." So still working on the camera angles. I'll have some different equipment here in the next couple of videos. Just I'm working with my iPhone. So one angle and give you the general idea of what we're doing here. So here's the hamburger for the Italian chili. I used about 2.5 pounds of burger here. When I put it in the pan, instead of dropping it in a huge clump, I break it apart a little bit to make it a little bit easier to break up. And then, I don't know if you've ever seen that tool before, just saw a glimpse of it there. It's a little black tool. It looks like a 5-sectioned pie shape, and it makes breaking hamburger up really easy. Right here I'm putting in some Italian seasoning, not a lot, just a little bit to add to the meat and the vegetables as I sweat them off. And you really want to make sure you break up the hamburger good so that it doesn't cook into larger clumps. It makes that soup a little more appetizing. Solid 3/4 of a cup of garlic chopped up right there on the Cuisinart. This garlic's really important, especially in this Italian chili, to give it the flavor that you want. Stir up that bacon again, make sure that it's not sticking. And in soups where you're not using whole muscle meat, where it's burger or something like that, you really got to pay attention to making sure that it stays broken up. So filling up the pitcher with water. That's a 1-gallon pitcher, and I filled it all the way to the top. That's what we'll use for the stock broth and the chicken chowder, or sorry, the Italian Tuscan chili. You can see it filling up back there. There are the clams out for the clam chowder and some chicken stock. Give this one good last stir before we add the water to it. Make sure that you get all your vegetables incorporated well. Really scratch the bottom of the pan on that bacon for the clam chowder. Get all of that caramelized bacon off the bottom. There go the onions and the celery for the clam chowder. A little bit more salt. Always make sure that you season your vegetables and your meat well after every addition. So if you're adding something fresh that's not been seasoned yet, lightly season it. Be careful not to go too far, but you want to make sure that you keep everything seasoned as it's going in, because if you miss that step, your final product is going to be a little bit bland. So, canned tomatoes, 2 cans of diced tomatoes in the chicken or the Tuscan chili. Solid 3/4 of a cup of garlic into the clam chowder. opening cans of kidney beans that go in chili as well. 2 cans of that. I drain them, not perfectly, but get as much of the liquid out as you can. Pour our water in.
There's a song inside your soul, waiting to be heard.
Stir in that garlic into the clam chowder. And then we'll stir our chili here, get all of that liquid in there. Put the beans in first. That big can that I'm opening right now is the clams that go in. Bought that at Costco. They have a 2-pack there that I usually get. It's pretty seasonal, so sometimes you can find it there, sometimes you can't. Most grocery stores carry chopped clams year-round. Costco and Sam's Club are more seasonal. And then those are bottles of clam juice. And in this particular batch, I did 6 bottles of clam juice. Make sure you shake them up to get all of the solids off the bottom. Alright. The other trick with soup is to keep it stirred. You don't have to go crazy on it, especially on these thinner broth soups. They don't stick terribly bad, but you want to keep stuff from clumping up on the bottom. Give it a taste, make sure where we're at before we add any of our soup base. That's beef, better than bouillon soup base. Add about 2 tablespoons here, stir it in. And then I go back and grab the mushroom soup base as well. And that's about a tablespoon of that. It adds a depth of flavor that's really hard to duplicate with anything else. So stir the clams up, get all of the vegetables and stuff in that broth going. We want to bring that up to a boil. And we add some chicken stock to that to increase our volume.
You decided it was time for him to fly.
And now I'm adding basil. It's just basil leaves. I don't want to make this too multi-dimensional, so the basil has a very distinct flavor to it, and that Tuscan chili really responds well to it with that beef in it. So we're gonna move over and we're gonna cut our potatoes for the chowder. I am a fat guy, and economy of movement is kind of important to me, so you see I slice these up and try to make as few moves as possible. So slice them one way, go back, flip them over, take one of the pieces off and lay it flat, and then you can rotate it, cut them into long strips, and then when you're done with the slicing, it comes out as cubes. And I use 3 large baking russet potatoes for the clam chowder here. You don't want to load your soup too full of potatoes, so you'll see I take 2 potatoes, go over and put it in the soup, and then stir it up, check and see how much volume I have, and then I come back and add 1 more potato.
There's a song inside your soul, waiting to be heard. Sing it aloud, you've written every word.
All right, potatoes in. This is what they look like when they're a full simmer. That one's got, I just added potatoes, so that's got a little bit of time to heat up. We're gonna take this chili, go ahead and put it in the soup well. Give it a taste, make sure everything is adjusted correctly. And into the pot we go. And Grayson is right there behind me, ready to wash that dish up and get things out of the way so that we keep our kitchen clean. All right, here's a skillet for the roux. We're gonna start with a whole pound of butter. Roux is made with 1-to-1 ratio of flour to oil, so you can use olive oil, butter, lard, whatever fat you'd like to use. New England Clam Chowder has a more buttery flavor, so you want to use as much butter as you can in that, which is why we're using a pound of butter here. And then you let that fat melt. As soon as you have a volume of whatever you're using, oil or fat or butter or whatever, then you add the same amount of flour into this. And in this particular batch, I didn't get enough fat in there. So as I add the flour, it gets a little clumpy. It's still not bad. It turned out okay, and it wasn't lumpy in the soup, but it's a little bit tricky to adjust the ratio and depending on what kind of flour you use and how much there is. So as I add this flour, you'll see that it looks a lot more like scrambled eggs, and you want it to be a lot silkier than that. And the way you pull that off, you'll see me at some point here add some olive oil to this so that it relaxes the flour so that it's a little silkier, easier to pour. If you get too far on the dry end of things with the flour, it will cause lumps in whatever you're thickening. And so you need to be really careful about that before you add your roux to make sure that it's cooked completely. The other thing with the roux that's important, I don't know what the term is, but it's green flour. If you don't cook the flour off completely, it adds this weird flavor to your sauce. So you need to make sure you take it to the point where it's starting to toast the flour. You'll see when this goes in, the flour and the butter are very blonde in color. As this cooks and gets hot, it'll start to take on a golden and moving toward the brown spectrum, and that's where you want this roux for the clam chowder. The trick here is just to get all of your flour incorporated with the fat so that you don't have any hot spots. The other thing that will happen rather quickly is the flour will begin to brown if you don't get it incorporated with the oil, and you'll have these weird bits of flour that are overcooked and aren't the same as the rest of the roux. So you can see here I was talking about the scrambled egg texture. It's really clumpy. It just doesn't have enough oil in it. The other thing you'll find at this point is sometimes it will loosen up as the mixture gets hot. In this particular instance, I just didn't quite have enough in it, and so it's pretty clumpy. But you've got to keep it moving. If you don't keep it moving, it will start to burn on the bottom, so you've got to keep it stirred constantly. There's that extra oil. I think I do this twice. And be conservative if you add oil, because you can see right here it really relaxed that a lot with just a little bit of extra. You end up with multiple cups of roux if you keep adding too much flour and oil, because there's a point where it gets too far on the loose end, you add more flour, and it's just this weird back and forth. So that's exactly what a roux should look like. It should be able to run right back in where you've run your whisk rather quickly. That's the body that you want. So you can see here it starts to loosen up, and the curd look of it is starting to relax. It's starting to brown. You can see it browning off just a tiny bit. The shade starts to begin to change. That's where you want this, and that green flour has now completely opened up. It's completely hot, and it's starting to toast, and that's right where you want this to be. So you can stop cooking here. I take mine a little bit farther. Get it more toward the amber color. So, about done here. We're gonna take it off the heat, slide it off to the side, and let it rest for a second while we're waiting our potatoes to finish. Everything in the clam chowder needs to be cooked, so the potatoes have to be soft, and before you add the roux or the cream, and we'll be in good shape. So we just added some cream. I didn't change the camera angle. It's about a couple pints of cream to this particular recipe. Throw the roux in this. And it is extremely hot. It's deceivingly hot. And you want to make sure that you're put it in there. It will instantly boil on the surface. And we'll get this in the soup well and get it ready for service. Hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it was informative, and there'll be more videos to come on some more recipes. So enjoy your soups.